Na new game.
You probably wonder who I am. Let me explain. An ordinary guy who was studying to be a historian. But that's not a big deal these days. Higher education means nothing in this country. It is almost impossible to get a job, and all those employed are still very poor. Public organizations get shut down, incessant staff reductions, write-offs, and poverty. On the other hand, oligarchs and their friends hold power with an iron grip.
Mm-hmm.
In their personal interests, they switched everything to private rails. The country was divided and sold. Despite having a diploma with honor and a completed dissertation paper, I had to become a stash man. A stash man works hard, but can earn good money. In this damned world, money decides everything. You just cannot survive without it. Still, existential despair, ethical hopelessness, and inner decay are killing me. I wish the world were different, at least a little. I studied to be a historian in order to devote more time to researching great revolutionaries and anarchists of the past, as well as in the hope of finding out how we can change the world today. All in vain. There are only few people like me now. We are too scanty to change anything. But maybe I got lucky this time. This is Semyon Mikhailovich, my neighbor and an inveterate alcoholic. When drunk, he talks all sorts of nonsense about the time machine and pretends to be a great physicist who studied in Germany. At least I thought it was nonsense. Until I put his wife on my cock one day. Natalia Ivanova, an elderly woman, used to seek solace, and, believe me, she did find it. Just imagine, her husband drinks and beats her, and there is a young and always sexually hungry guy next door. That is me. It's a sin not to take advantage. I remember very well how her small, cunning, old womanish eyes spotted me right away. I could understand this because I did not take my eyes off her too. Yes, I love MILFs. Why not? Who is sinless? Long story short, when my cock visited her rotten truffle for the nth time, and we had hot sex at her place, I noticed a solid file lying on a bedside table and, of course, I snatched it, hoping it contained their retirement savings. After a couple of squirts, I returned home and opened the ill-fated package. If I say I was fucking shocked, that wouldn't be the exact word. I almost shit on myself of sincere and inhuman surprise. Instead of the expected retirement money, I discovered some documents showing that Semyon was not only an alcoholic, boomer, and cuckold, but also a recognized scientist working at Sokovo. My skills of a stash man and old women fucker helped me to find rubbish spots and a loophole I am going to use to penetrate into a secret lab established in a Sokovo basement. It was difficult, but I managed to get this secret object. Poor Semyon Mikhailovich. Apparently he found out about his wife's betrayal. Now that does not matter though, because I will change this country along with the whole world. The coordinates and time are defined. It's time to change. Hopefully, I did not make the wrong choice.
Staying in Lenin's shadow, Stalin skillfully installed his allies on every level of the party apparatus. Joseph has always been a moderate socialist, flawlessly playing his role in front of friends and foes alike. Even after Lenin's death in 1924, he continued to lurk in the shadows, pitting his rivals Trotsky, Kamenev, and Zinoviev, the primary pretenders to the communist throne, against each other. Stalin initiated the so-called Lenin's draft, the mass recruitment of working-class people into the Russian Communist Party. This transition from the party of elites to the party of workers had a profound effect, severely limiting the influence of Stalin's rivals, and this allowed Stalin to start his quest for supremacy. Stalin didn't bend, but not everyone could see this. He was always unflinchingly pragmatic and efficiently cruel. When leading the country, Joseph did not allow for a shade of insubordination with public and hidden purges, stamping out discontent before it could spread.
Comrade Time Traveler.
I wonder how many people should be executed before Beria is accused of being Putin. And at what point do we finally execute him because of it? He has too much influence now, and these thoughts stink like damn rotten capitalism. Lenin would have turned over in his grave 3 times by now.
Lo coisa.
Fucking fuck! NKVD! There's a spy! Shoot him! Well, wait a minute. You're naked. Why on Soviet land? There's a naked guy in my office, and he wants to raid the general secretary. Call for Comrade Beria right now. This is treason. State treason.
Okay.
That's really good. That's really good. Yeah, actually, I'm good. I
Well,
think.
yes.
I mean, I feel fine. It's just okay. I just need to go to, I don't know, to the bathroom, just, go to sleep, just probably tomorrow will be, as crazy as it was today. But, I just want to ensure that they are healthy. So I will do my best, of course. But, yeah, I'm good. I'm actually good.
I'm happy to hear that you're good. Like, it's so much on you. I wish I could help you somewhere, if I was around. Like, anyway, so I guess we won't talk today too. Unfortunately. Take a bath, take some rest. And talk to me like after it, like.
You just took me by surprise while I was lost in my thoughts. And if you value your life, though it will be short.
Where is the sex?
Believe me, I can make it.
Stalinpedia.
So, you've chosen death then. You are lucky that I have no gun in my pocket. Alright, I can give you another choice. You wanna be shot in the head or in the heart? I can also shoot your nutsack off first if you wish. I will make you scream like a little girl. That's nothing new. Not surprised. I'm already old, my dear boy. Of course he will. I didn't take him in hand for nothing. Me and Nikita Sergeyevich had a conflict in the past, but we settled it. And talking about
Di ba kautiba niya?
he's not farsighted enough, and he understands it himself. She always was a romantic person with a passion for new things. Well, Khrushchev had a bald head, so your rule doesn't work. What? Stop. How can you know this indeed? Who are you? What was the name of my father? Why was I expelled from a theological seminary? You know, my father regularly beat me and my mother. I could not accept this from a religious person, so I turned to Marxism. How old was I when I lost my virginity? In your time, it's probably not a secret. When was my first time with a man? Okay, last question. What I did to Roosevelt when we met at the Yalta Conference in 1945, I've never told this to anyone. Okay, maybe you are from the future, or maybe you're a cunning liar. Anyway, you know too much. Don't worry, my dear. You have no chance of surviving through the night, so we can just take our time and enjoy this conversation. And why not? I have insomnia anyway. For sure. Yesterday, a maid wanted to help me too, but she had a Mauser in her hand. She was dashing about as fast as lightning, wild and bold. She wanted to kill me. She wanted that so much. But she left my office in the morning with her button falling out. Beria overdid it. And 1 day later, she was executed. But it doesn't matter now. Let's get started. But before, Comrade Time Traveler, please bend over and cough. I need to check you for spyware. Comrade Traveler, I received some interesting materials yesterday. Don't rush. You have enough time to study the details. Firstly, tell me something. Is communism at all?
כן, חופר אחר זה.
That's not what I asked. You see, the author of the materials I mentioned before has built quite an interesting logic consequence. As you may know, the essence of communism was explained by Karl Marx. Well, in the highest phase of communist society, the division of labor that enslaves people will disappear, and the opposition of mental and physical labor will also vanish. Labor will never be just a means for earning a living. It will become the first need of life, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. That is communism. Our society is now at a stage of socialism. We have not yet reached that stage of socialization, not of both people and means of production. But at the same time, I sometimes think that communism is desirable,
Ben aan bod.
almost impossible to reach, at least due to the fundamental subjectivity of individual consciousness. You see, the socialism that we have now, it is in fact the same capitalism, but already completely monopolistic. The global monopolistic capitalism, it's autocratic, so to say. There is the monopoly on trade, legislation, production, ideology, and propaganda, and a monopoly on thoughts and life itself. If you think profoundly, you will see that our Western colleagues do. When it comes to a crisis, they quickly send all their ideas and principles to hell. Is there a great difference between the economics of the USA and Germany? Yes, the ideologies are different, but how they work is just the same. There are some methods. There really are. But everything depends on people's self-consciousness. Any method can be of use when it comes to this. As you might know, the end justifies the means. Well, I heard that if certain rites or rituals are carried out, they can possibly influence the course of history. To a certain extent, of course. I know it sounds unscientific and absurd, but even if there is only a small probability of this happening, why shouldn't we spend some time studying it? Exactly. You may not believe me, but magic has been known since ancient times, and not in vain. We know that kings, tsars, and emperors used it. Moreover, even Hitler did not shun the use of magic to help achieve his goals. Of course, it has not been proven that magical forces work, at least scientifically. However, there is no smoke without fire, and Germany had already spent so much on the search for mystical artifacts. Magic, dear, is a delicate matter. It's like an invisible thread penetrating through the universe. If it does exist, there is. Adolf had plenty more opportunities to study it. He simply began his large-scale expansion instead of using the resources he had wisely. It was rude and ignorant, and it came back to bite him. Not at all. Think about what I've just told you. Magic is the thread that penetrates the universe. What happens if someone damages that thread or touches something that should never have been touched in the first place? Exactly. If you practice it carelessly, you can tear the energy flows. The flows of chi, chakras, you may call it whatever you like. Any blunder can cause full-scale disaster. If you neglect them, believe me. He only wanted power and unification of the world under his command. But I want peace and goodness, and our motherland will flourish without troubles and grief. We will analyze. We can study the past and the mistakes made by others. We will observe what is dangerous to do and what is possible when performed carefully within reasonable limits. We'll check prayers, protective amulets, invoking spirits for protection of the Soviet people, blessing the land and crops and more. But first of all, of course, we need to study all of this. The USSR has no enemies. There are only ill-wishers. But if they go so far in their strive to harm us, they will get a decent fight back. I will protect my people, whatever it takes. And why are you so sure of Hitler's death? He is alive, but in a coma. Even the bullet eventually turned away from him. knowledge. Anyway, he is dead to the rest of the world. Any questions or suggestions?
Mhm.
What phenomena? I wouldn't say there's anything in particular that comes to mind, although there are a couple of moments I can remember. For example, our best psychics, Wolf Messing and Nina Kulagina. His predictions often don't come true, but I understand that he isn't the only one to give such predictions. And
אני יכול לקנות, זה לא כזה יקר.
the Soviet Union.
כל 2,000 שקל. why not? אין לי מספיק סרטה לחבר את כולם, אבל בסדר. יש לי רק מה? מי פאוור? בת רציני?
Nina.
כן?
She's not Madame Kulakova, of course, but she's nice. She gave us significant assistance in the
וואו, איזה 10 בת כולם ביחד. כמה שהכבלים החזיקו. לא, הסתכלתי על התאר, הוא ממש זול, הוא 300 שקל. כן, אבל אני קונה איזה 4 כאלה, אז זה לא 100 שקל, 400. כן, אבל 860 מבו זה כולה איזה 900 שקל, כזה שתי יותר.
You may likely know in the future about the legends that are told about the dragon.
Yes.
That's the legend, and we keep it alive. There is no need for people to know the truth. Of course not. Don't be naive.
חופש למפק של הטרה.
It seems when it was Alexander II.
וואו, רק דיברתי.
Across the ocean, I can
Okay.
only imagine how they managed it, how they survived through that harsh expedition. But they found a number of
כן,
trophies
שתי טרה,
there.
לא רע.
There were the remains of a dinosaur-like creatures and preserved eggs.
אבל למה אין לך טנפק?
At least, but that's not the point. The bottom line is that once in our climate, after the eternal cold, they
Yes.
begin to reawake, the narrow-minded nobles.
אל תק 8 כי זה מה שיש לי בלוח אחרים, אבל הגעתי גם בסוף.
In a waiter of the lake, where they would like to rest, until the eggs began to disappear one by one. At first, the nobles thought it was a group of robbers stealing their toys, so they began to patrol the area. It took a couple of weeks for everything to fall into place. Once, during their regular drinking sessions, a big reptile emerged from
איזה
the
אינטרפייס?
water and ate the nobles and the peasants. This is the truth of Brosna Lake.
כל פעם אני מוגבל למהירות שלו. לא.
I saw him, this creature, the last of them. In 1942, people started disappearing in the area. For the first time in a long while. Then the soldiers who were sent to settle the problem also vanished. By the time we arrived there with Lavrenty Pavlovich, everything was, to put it mildly, terrible. The waters were red. We decided to use bait. We filled the corpses of people with various poisons, and it worked. A few days later, we saw it floating on a surface. It was a huge, sick, worn-out monster. It was desperately trying to get ashore. There he was met by a division. There was the war. So we had no time for that. We buried their remains in the lake. They're still there, I suppose, along with the remains of his brethren.
סמסונג הורידו את המחירים שלהם יפה. כן.
So much that he
כל
dropped
SSD שנכנס אליו של סמסונג זה
once.
ירד במחיר לאחרונה.
He had an entire diversion squad in his headquarters.
וואו. רק ראיתי סמסונג.
Yes, and I'm sure that it wasn't his only group, though he achieved a certain amount of success in this field. It was a cold Tuesday. I remember it like it was yesterday, a few days before.
זה לא אמירויות של הסמסונג.
The meeting was to be held as a conference, so there was a lot of security.
כנראה
That's
קיבל
when
דרייב
they
דפוק.
tried to kill me.
לא, 4K קצת נמוך. זה הקטע עם הרפיד.
Even better, the members of the group Zeppelin, I don't know how in hell, stole a real Chaika I-153.
אני לא קונה מאמזון, מה זה הביקורות האלה?
Right under my nose.
שכאילו דרייב זה פייק ודרייב זה לא טובים ולא אמיתיים. ו-DOA, not compatible, it's on risk, warranty. What the fuck? זה רנדום 4K גם, של גיגה ביט. אופנן לא מגיע לגיגה ביט 4K.
It gets better. At night, a fighter flown by a suicide bomber simply flew into the headquarters.
אני מזמין את זה מניואג.
Away narrated through the
כמה זה עולה בניואג אבל, כי פה זה די זול.
lift of the plane, and the pilot, he
4 זה 2. כמעט אותו מחיר. 100 שקל יותר יקר אולי.
He didn't care about bullets. He just tore and shredded them, trying to get to me. He shouted that
Baby, I like those eggs.
that he had given his life to torture and that the monster inside him would and devour everyone and everything.
זה המשפט.
I thought so too, until I saw something erupting from his chest, and in the end it broke free, growing inside with each devoured victim.
גם פה זה, ה-970 פלוס ירד המחיר שלו, נראה לי סמסונג עשו הדחה כללית על כל ה-SSDים שלהם.
Conference.
רואה, זה היה 1300, עכשיו זה 1080.
I had to use myself as a bait and let that monster
כן,
into the
נזמין את הבא מפה, יגיעו יותר מהר.
headquarters. This was somewhat successful.
למרות שזה לא כזה משנה לי, אבל סתם.
The wounded monster was fatigued, and I was out of shape.
כן, שישב אצלי בארון יותר מהר,
And hurt me
ועוד משנה לי.
relentlessly biting my body with his fangs, tearing my flesh with his claws. But I also beat the creature several times, and even managed to shoot at it.
תחרות הטמפרטורה בטסק מנג'ר.
That's what I was worried about. I ran out of bullets. I used a knife and cut a deep gash in its chest. Ironically, its flesh turned out to be extremely soft and malleable. I even managed to get my hand in there. Exactly. And I finally ripped out its heart. Meanwhile, the soldiers had arrived. The creature was burned. I was exhausted and taken to the hospital. Nothing was rewritten. Yes, I recovered very quickly. I began, so to say, to change. My new flesh seemed weird at first, but then I got used to it. I woke up at night, suffering from the unbearable smell of food. I was very hungry, and I just ate and ate and ate. Only in the morning, when I was waking up, did I realize that I had killed the entire hospital. I tore them all apart with my bare hands and devoured them. As I came to learn later, even though the monster was killed by me, I had swallowed its blood and was also infected. That means there's a part of him inside of me. Still, I hear his voice, the voice of an alien, and sometimes I let him do what he wants. No, at first I was afraid of it. I was scared. It was so painful. But now I know I will never die for as long as there is food. I can recover for as long as I want. And even if my body is destroyed in any way, there will always be a living legacy. I can be reborn by putting larva in my victim's body, and my current body is too old or damaged. I can easily transfer my consciousness into one of these larvae. Don't worry, I can control it. Maybe now is the time, don't you think? You see,
וואו,
I
כל הכבוד.
maybe I should be reborn.
Oh no.
Stalin never changed. Only Papadanin could render any significant impact, and as a result, he undoubtedly regretted that impact. Stalin revealed the truth about his nature to the time traveler, and then proceeded to infect him with his larva. With every incarnation, he will become
Коврит Сталин.
stronger, thought the time traveler. No one can stop me. I will be the one to devour this world, the one to save it. I will make the humanity a part of me. I'll eat my larva in you, and soon it will go.
האם אתם מייצרים
When
SSDים?
it happens, my consciousness will
יש פה AMD רדיון R7 SSD.
be fully reborn in your body. I will gain all the knowledge and memories
לא
that
שמעתי
you
על זה.
own, and then no one will be able to stop me. Stalin waited for the time traveler's reaction. He was enjoying it. He loved getting satisfaction out of inhuman suffering, whether it be physical or mental. The time traveler was in despair. He felt sharp pain inside. He realized the evil plan that this monster was going to implement. Despite this, the time traveler wasn't going to give up. At some point, he managed to jump and rush to Stalin, biting and tearing off pieces of his flesh. I must not lose. I need to survive at any cost. The battle of two forces began. Unfortunately, the time traveler lost and Stalin was reborn in his body. But at the last moment, when it seems
זה עדיין
the world
באנדינג?
had come to an end, the time traveler used his last ounce of strength to grab a knife and kill the fruit of Stalin that was being born in his chest.
עכשיו תשחק את זה עוד פעם, אתה מקבל אנינג שונה. זה הקטע של המשחק.